Well, look, I think it's quite important for us to do so. How can we prevent it? By lobbying hard to ensure that when the future of Gibraltar or anything that affects Gibraltar is discussed, that we are there in our own separate way and in our own separate representation. We fought very hard when the GSD were in government to ensure that we would not get round the negotiating table with Spain as part of the British delegation, and we would do so in our own right. We fought very hard to change that, and eventually led to the trilateral forum. I think that when the issues that affect Gibraltar, that where Gibraltar's future is at stake, it is important for the government to be represented, and for the government of Gibraltar that represents the people of Gibraltar to take the final determination of any issue.
Is there a danger that an airport deal will be decided behind our backs, or indeed that talks have already begun?
Well, I assume not, in the sense that the government has always assured us at the people of Gibraltar that it will have the final say in any discussions that are occurring. I think the important fact when Mr Dastis has mentioned that he is seeking a bilateral agreement and to use his phrase, so that they could manage the airport together. I think the danger of that, and the devil is always in the detail, is that he is not raising the spectre of a 1987 airport agreement style arrangement. That would be entirely unacceptable to Gibraltar. I know the government has made an allusion to the 2006 Cordova agreement, but of course the 2006 Cordova agreement was entirely different to the 1987 arrangement, and indeed very different to what Mr Dastis has said. What Mr Dastis has said is that he wants a UK-Spain, in other words, a bilateral arrangement to manage the airport together. In other words, that the UK and Spain would manage the airport together. That is not what the 2006 Cordova arrangement envisages, which is only for enhanced use and was born out of a trilateral agreement where the government of Gibraltar was represented and did not involve joint management is not even a phrase used, it's enhanced use, and it was a Gibraltar commercial arrangement through a joint venture with Spanish commercial interests. It's an entirely different matter to the 1987 airport agreement.
The GSD is responsible for the Cordova Agreement, although at the time your then party, the PDP, expressed caution over the logistics at the airport and issues of jurisdiction and control. Have you reconciled your opinion with the party you now lead?
Well, so did, the GSLP also had a number of concerns about the 2006 Cordova Agreement. Look, the devil is in the detail, and I don't think the government is suggesting that it is seeking to implement the 2006 Cordova Agreement. But I think the question that arises, given that the government mentioned the Cordova Agreement in its own press release yesterday, is whether indeed it is contemplating the possibility of implementing the 2006 Cordova arrangement in respect of the airport. I think that's the key question. The issue is not about what's happened in the past. The issue is, what is the government contemplating as we go forward if there are going to be discussions in relation to the airport? That's the principal question that we need to address. And the second one is that there is a very marked and important difference between the 1987 airport agreement and that agreed in Cordova in 2006, because, as I've said, the Cordova agreement was trilateral and it did not involve joint control. Any issue of sovereignty, jurisdiction and control was not ceded through Cordova. It involved enhanced use and not management between the UK and Spain. It was going to be managed through a Gibraltar government concession to a joint venture involving Gibraltarian interests and Spanish commercial interests.
So is the GSD changing its view on Cordova now?
I'm not saying we are changing our position on Cordova. I think this has become a massive distraction into the debate. Mr Dastis has said that he wants the UK and Spain to reach an agreement to manage the airport together. That is bilateralism, and that to us points to the 1987 airport agreement. The government has raised the issue of Cordova in its own reply. We don't know why they've done that. The question arises why the government have done that. Is it because they are seeking to implement the 2006 Cordova Agreement. If they are prepared to do that and to discuss that implementation, then they should say so.